Beyond Birth and Death, Chapter 2, Elevation and Death. There are different kinds of transcendentalists who are called yogis, hatha yogis, jnana yogis, dhyan yogis, and bhakti yogis. And all of them are eligible to be transferred to the spiritual world. The word yoga means to link up, and the yoga system are meant to enable us to link with the transcendental world. As mentioned in the previous chapter, originally we are all connected to the Supreme Lord, but now we have been affected by material contamination. The process is that we have to return to the spiritual world, and that process of linking up is called yoga. Another meaning of the word yoga is plus. At the present moment, we are minus God or minus Supreme Personality. When we add Krishna or God to our lives, this human form of life becomes perfect. At the time of death, we have to finish that process of perfection. During our lifetime, we have to practice the method of approaching that perfection so that at the time of death, when we have to give up this material body, that perfection can be realized. प्रयायनाकेले मनश्चलेन भक्त्या युक्तो योगबलेन चैव भ्रुवोर्मध्ये प्रणामविश्य सम्यक् सेतां परमं पुरुषम् उपयति दिव्यम्. One who at the time of death fixes his life air between eyebrows and in full devotion engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord will certainly attain to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just as a student studies a subject for 4 or 5 years and then takes his examination and receives a degree, similarly with the subject of life, if we practice during our lives for the examination at the time of death, and if we pass the examination, we are transferred to the spiritual world. Our whole life is examined at the time of death. Yam yam vapi smaram bhavam तयजति अन्ते केल्वरं तं तं एवयति कौन्तेया सदा तद्भावा bhavita. Whatever states of being one remember when he quits his body, that state he will attain without doubt. There is a Bengali proverb that says that whatever one does for perfection will be tested at the time of his death. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes what one should do when giving up the body. For the Dhyana Yogi meditator, Sri Krishna speaks the following verses. Yagd aksharam veda vedo vedanti vasyanti yad yatayayo vitaragaha yad ichanto brahmacharyam charanti tatate padam shranghane pravakashya सर्वदवराणि संयम्य मानो हृदय निरुद्धाय च मृधनि अध्यात्मनः प्रणामम् अस्थितो योगाधराणाम्. Persons learn in the Vedas who utter Omkar and who are great sages in the renounce order enter into Brahman. Desiring such perfection, one practice celibacy. I shall now explain to you this process by which one may attain salvation. The yogic situation is that of detachment from all sensual engagements, closing all the doors of the senses and fixing the mind on the heart and lift the air at the top of the head. One establishes himself in yoga. In the yoga system, this process is called pratihara, which means just the opposite. Although during life the eyes are engaged in seeing worldly beauty, at death one has to retract the senses from their object and see the beauty within. Similarly, the ears are accustomed to hearing so many sounds in the world, but at the moment of death one has to hear the transcendental Omkar from within. Om iti ekakacharam brahma व्याहरन् माम् अनुस्मरन् यः प्रयाति तया देहं सा yati paramam gatim. After being situated in this yoga practice and vibrating the sacred syllable Om, the supreme combination of letters, if one thinks of supreme personality of Godhead, quits his body, he will certainly reach the spiritual planets. This way, all the senses have to be stopped in their external activities and concentrated on the form of Vishnu Murti, the form of God. The mind is very turbulent, but it has to be fixed on the Lord in the heart. When the mind is fixed within the heart and the life air is transferred to the top of the head, one can attain perfection of yoga. At this point, the yogi determines where he has to go. In the material universes, there are innumerable planets, and beyond this universe, there is the spiritual universe. The yogis have information of these places from Vedic literatures. Just as one going to America can get some idea what the country is like by reading books, one can also have knowledge of the spiritual planets by reading Vedic literatures. The yogi knows all these descriptions and he can transfer himself to any planets he like without the help of spaceships. Space travel by mechanical means is not the accepted process for elevation to the other planets. Perhaps with a great deal of time, effort, and money, a few men may be able to reach other planets by material means, spaceships, spaceships, etc. But this is very cumbersome and impractical method. In any case, it is not possible to go beyond the material universe by mechanical means. The generally accepted method for transfer to the higher planets is the practice of the meditational yoga system or jnana system. The bhakti yoga system, however, is not to be practiced for transfer to any material planets. For those who are servants of Krishna, the Supreme Lord, are not interested in any planets in this material world, because they know that on whatever planet one enters in the material sky, the four principles of birth, old age, disease, and death are present. On higher planets, the duration of life may be longer than on this earth, but death is there nonetheless. By material universe, we refer to those planets where birth, old age, disease, and death reside. And by spiritual universe, we refer to those planets where there is no birth, old age, disease, and death. Those who are intelligent do not try to elevate themselves to any planet within the material universe. If one tries to enter higher planets by mechanical means, instant death is assured, but the body cannot stand the radical changes in atmosphere. But if one attempt to go to higher planets by means of the yoga system, he will acquire a suitable body for entrance. We can see this demonstrated on this earth, for we know it is not possible for us to live in the sea, in a watery atmosphere, nor is it possible for aquatics to live on the earth. So we understand that even on this planet, one has to have a particular type of body to live in a particular place. So a particular type of body is required for other planets. On the higher planets, bodies lives much longer than on Earth. For 6 months on the Earth is equal to 1 day on the higher planets. Thus, the Veda describes that those who live on higher planets live upward to the 10,000 Earth years. Yet, despite such long lifespan, death awaits everyone. Even if one lives 20,000 or 50,000 or even millions of years in the material world, the years are all counted and death is there. How can we escape this subjugation by death? That is the lesson of Bhagavad Gita. Na jayate maryate va kadachin nayamam bhutva bhavita va na bhuyaya ajo nitya shashvato yam purano na hanyate hanyamane sharire. For the soul there is never birth nor death, nor once having been does he ever cease to be. He is unbound, eternal, ever existing, undying, and permeable. He is not slain, and the body is slain. We are a spirit soul, and as such, we are eternal. Why then should we subject ourselves to birth and death? One who asks this question is to be considered intelligent. Those who are Krishna conscious are very intelligent because they are not interested in gaining entrance to any planet where there is a death. They will reject a long duration of life in order to attain a body like God's. Ishvara Parama Krishna, Sachidananda Vigraha. Sat means eternal, Chit means full of knowledge, and Anand means full of pleasure. Krishna is the reservoir of all pleasure. If we transfer ourselves from this body into the spiritual world, either to Krishna Lok or any other spiritual planet, we will receive a similar Sachidanand body. Thus, the aim of those who are in Krishna consciousness is different from those who are trying to promote themselves to higher planets within this material world. The self or soul of the individual is a minute spiritual spark. The perfection of yoga lies in the transfer of this spiritual spark to the top of the head. Having attained this, the yogi can transfer himself to any planet in the material world according to his desire. If the yogi is curious to know what the moon is like, he can transfer himself there, or if he is interested in higher planets, he can transfer himself there. Just as travelers go to the New York, Canada, or other cities on the earth. Wherever one goes on earth, he finds the same visa and custom system operating, and on all material planets, one can similarly see the principle of birth, old age, disease, and death operating. Om iti ekrisharama brahma. At the point of death, the yogi can pronounce Om, Omkar, the concise form of transcendental sound vibration. If the yogi can vibrate this sound and at the same time remember Krishna, Vishnu, Mahamanusmaran, he attains the highest goal. It is the process of yoga to concentrate the mind on Vishnu. The impersonalists imagine some form of the Supreme Lord, but the personalists do not imagine this. They actually see. Whether one imagine him or actually see him, one has to concentrate his mind on the personal form of Krishna. अन्यने चेतः सततं यो मां स्मृति नित्यशः तस्य अहं सुलभः पार्था नित्ययुक्तस्य योगिना. For one who remembers me without evasion, I am easy to obtain, O son of Parth, because of this, because of his constant engagement in devotional service. Those who are satisfied with temporary life, temporary pleasure, and temporary facilities are not to be considered intelligent, at least not according to Bhagavad Gita. According to the Gita, one whose brain substance is very small is interested in temporary things. We are eternal, so why should we be interested in temporary things? No one wants a permanent situation. If we are living in an apartment and the landlord asks us to vacate, we are sorry, but we are not sorry if we move into the better apartment. It is our nature because we are permanent to want permanent residence. We don't wish to die because in actuality we are permanent, nor do we want to grow old or be diseased because these are external or non permanent states. Although we are not meant to suffer from fever, sometimes fever comes and we have to take precautions and remedies to get well again. The fourfold miseries are like fever and they are all due to the material body. If somehow we can get out of the material body, we can escape the miseries that are integrated with it. For the impersonalists to get out of this temporary body, Krishna here advised that they vibrate the cerebral Om. In this way, they can be assured of transmigration into the spiritual world. However, although they may enter the spiritual world, they cannot enter into any of the planets there. They remain outside in the Brahmjyoti. The Brahmjyoti may be compared to the sunshine, and the spiritual planets may be compared to the sun itself. In the spiritual sky, the impersonalists remain in the effulgence of the Supreme Lord, the Brahmjyoti. The impersonalists are placed in the Brahmjyoti as spiritual spark, and in this way, the Brahmjyoti is filled with spiritual sparks. This is what is meant by merging into the spiritual existence. It should not be considered that one merges into the Brahmjyoti in the sense of becoming one with it. The individuality of the spiritual spark is retained. But because the impersonalist does not want to take a personal form, he is found as a spiritual spark in that effulgence. Just as the sunshine is composed of so many atomic particles, so the Brahmjyoti is composed of so many spiritual sparks. However, as a living entity, we want enjoyment. Being in itself is not enough. We want bliss, Anand, as well as being Sat. In his eternity, the living entity is composed of three qualities: eternity, knowledge, and bliss. Those who enter impersonally into the Brahmjyoti can remain there for some time in full knowledge that they are now merged homogeneously with Brahman. But they cannot have that eternal Anand bliss because that part is wanting. One may remain alone in a room for some time and may enjoy himself by reading a book or engaging in some thought, but it is not possible to remain in that room for years and year at a time, and certainly not for all eternity. Therefore, for one who merges personally into the existence of the Supreme, there is every chance of falling down into the material world in order to acquire some association. This is the verdict of Srimad Bhagavatam. Astronauts may travel thousands and thousands of miles, but if they do not find rest on some planet, they have to return again to the earth. In any case, rest is required. In the impersonal form, rest is uncertain. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam says that even after so much endeavor, if the impersonalist enters into the spiritual world and acquires an impersonal form, he returns again into the material world because of neglecting to serve the Supreme Lord in love and devotion. As long as we are here on earth, we must learn to practice to love and serve Krishna, the Supreme Lord. If we learn this, we can enter into those spiritual planets. The impersonalist position in the spiritual world is non permanent, for out of loneliness he will attempt to acquire some association. Because he does not associate personally with the Supreme Lord, he has to return again to the world and associate with conditioned living entities there. It is of utmost importance, therefore, that we know the nature of our constitutional position. We want eternity, complete knowledge, and also pleasure. When we are left alone for a long time in the impersonal Brahmjyoti, we cannot have pleasure. And therefore, we accept the pleasure given by the material world. But in Krishna consciousness, real pleasure is enjoyed. In the material world, it is generally accepted that the highest pleasure is sex. This is a perverted reflection of the sex pleasure in the spiritual world, the pleasure of association with Krishna. But we should not think that the pleasure there is like the sex pleasure in the material world. No, it is different. But unless sex life is there in the spiritual world, it cannot be reflected there. Here. Here it is simply a perverted reflection, but the actual life is there in Krishna, who is full of pleasure. Therefore, the best process is to train ourselves now so that at the time of death we may transfer ourselves to the spiritual universe, to Krishna Lok, and there associate with Krishna. In Brahma Samhita, Sri Krishna and his abode are described thus. Chintamani prakarsha sadhameshu kalpavrikshu lakshvriteshu surbhir abhiya palayantam Lakshmi Sahasra Sata Sambhrama Sevyamanamam Govindam Adi Purusham Tam Ham Bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor who is tending the cows, fulfilling all desires, in abodes built with spiritual gems, surrounded by millions of wish-fulfilling trees, always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds and thousands of Lakshmis or Gopis. This is a description of Krishna Lok. The houses are made of what is called touchstone. Whatever touchstone touches immediately turns into gold. The trees are wish fulfilling trees or desire trees, for one can receive from them whatever he wishes. In this world, we get mangoes from mango trees and apples from the apple trees, but they are there from any tree. One can get whatever he desires. Similarly, the cows are called surbi and they yield an endless supply of milk. These are descriptions of the spiritual planets found in Vedic scriptures. In this material world, we have become assimilatized to birth, death, and all sort of suffering. Material scientists have discovered many facilities for sense enjoyment and destruction, but they have discovered no solution to the problem of old age, disease, and death. They cannot make any machine that will check death, old age, and disease. We can manufacture something that will accelerate death, but nothing that will stop death. Those who are intelligent, however, are not concerned with the fourfold miseries of material life, but with the elevation to the spiritual planets. One who is continuously in trance, nitya yuktasya yogina, does not divert his attention to anything else. He is always situated in trance. His mind is always filled with the thought of Krishna without deviation. Anyanya chetaha satatam. Satatam refer to anywhere and anytime. In India, I lived in Vrindavan and now I am in America. But this does not mean that I am out of Vrindavan. Because if I think of Krishna always, then I am always in Vrindavan, regardless of the material designation. Krishna consciousness meant that one always live with Krishna on the spiritual planet Golok Vrindavan, and that one is simply waiting to give up this material body. Smriti Nityasha means continuously remembering, and for one who is continuously remembering Krishna, the Lord becomes Tasya Aham Sulbhaya, easily purchased. Krishna himself says that he is easily purchased by this bhakti yoga process. Then why should we take to any other process? We can chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, 24 hours daily. There are no rules and regulation. One can chant in the street, in the subway, or at his home or office. There is no tax and no expense. So why not take to it? Hare Krishna.